Next Kina Chaf Hey, Miyite Roshi Mayim, page 81. Kina speaks about the Churban of Kehilo Shum, Shapira, Vermaiza, Magensa, during the Crusades. Immediately after this Kina, we're going to say the special Kina for European Jewry during the Churban of Europe in our generation. But the Kina mentions that families were Moser Nefesh, fathers and mothers, makrib their children, that they shouldn't fall into the hands of the Crusaders and be raised as Christians. But I thought I would use this Kina to speak about another aspect of Avas Yisrael, loving your family. Start with yourself. A person has to love himself. You have to have self-esteem, feeling of self-worth. The Rabbeinu Yonah says that the foundation of all Avodas Hashem is Hakoras Mailas Atzma. Person recognizing his own self-esteem. Because if you don't think that you're important, then why in the world would HaKadosh Baruch Hu want you to serve him? If you're a worthless ant. And why would you have any deterrent to do anything wrong if you're good for nothing? Good for nothing things. Do good for nothing things. So if you want to have an incentive to do what's right and not to do what's wrong, you have to be makir mailas atzma. What's the difference between that and gaiva? We always explain, gaiva is I'm important because I made myself important and that gives me rights. And self-esteem is I'm important because HaKadosh Baruch Hu made me important and that gives me responsibility. It's a difference. Person has to say, B'shvili nivra ha'olam. And that is the yesod of all Ahava. The person loves himself, should love his spouse. The Sefer HaBris says there are people who love everybody. They'll do favors for everybody, except for their spouse, except for their wife or husband. That's where chesed ends. The door of your home. The halach is not like that. A wife is included in the Ohakta Reacha Kamocha too. Gemara and Kedusha. And in addition, there's a special mitzvah the Rabbana. Sheyeu vesishto. B'yechabda yeva kegufo. B'yechabda yoser migufo. What does it mean to honor her more than your own? Something that doesn't make a difference to you, but it makes a difference to your wife. So you have to give her the kavod of respecting what's important to her, even if to you it's dvarim shel mavakah. That's mechabda yoser migufo. A woman has a chiyuv to be mechabed her husband yoser midal. I always like to explain that means sometimes a husband doesn't get the respect outside that his wife realizes he deserves. Sometimes the opposite. The guy gets a lot of covet outside and his wife realizes he doesn't deserve it. In either case, she should be mechabed him yoser midal. More than other people know, or more than she knows. What other people? Whichever one is the more, that's what she should mechabed. The Sefer HaBris says that Avas Ishto is Yoser Chomer, Ahava of Sina ki chelik mimenu. Worse, to be over the Yisr of Losisna, or not to mekayim mitzvah v'ahavta le'acha kamocha to your wife, or vice husband. V'hameirim yodo al Ishto, afilu roi l'ruach hakodesh misdalek mimenu. Person who raises his hand against his wife, even if the person's roy for Ruach HaKodesh, the Rebbe shows the Shrinah will leave him. So Maisa with Baruch Bear came to America, and he met a Talmud who had left the yeshiva years before, and he was afraid that he went off the derech, came to America. The Talmud invited him, and he saw that he's still ben Torah, extremely happy. So he invited him to his home. And he walks into the house, and his wife is listening to a record on the phonograph. So he went fast, turned off the phonograph. So Baruch Ber, because he wanted to show Baruch Ber, he's still from, he didn't want his wife to listen to the phonograph. So phonograph is a thing where there were records. Something similar to these things, are a little bit bigger. And so Baruch Ber called him over and he said, why'd you turn off the phonograph? He said, because I was covered to the Rabbi. He said, did you ask your wife permission to turn it off? She was in the middle of listening to a record. You had the chutzpah to go and turn it off without at least explaining to her why you wanted to turn it off and ask her permission first. So sometimes fruitkeit is not necessarily not listening to records, but it's being mechabed your wife is also being fruit. The Chofetz Chaim recorded that it was his second wife, and he had to decide where to build his sukkah. So his wife told her, I think I want the sukkah over here. It would be much easier for me, kitchen-wise, whatever. So he built the sukkah there, and then his wife said, you know what, I think I changed my mind. I think it would be much better to have sukkah over here. Took the sukkah apart, put it over in the second place. After the second place, she said, you know what, I think that maybe the first place was better. Put it apart, put it back. Kavod ish, though, is an extremely important thing, and people seem to think that respecting and loving strangers is more important than your own family. Mela, children also. A person has a chiyuv to mechabed and to love his children too. People think that children are your possession, you can do what you want with them. But the same halacha of avas reim applies to a child, may even apply to a baby. There was a Yosef Chaim Sonnenfeld, Tisha. His son was hungry, and he was chepping the father. He wanted to go home and eat. And the father's in the middle of Kinos, just kept ignoring the kid. Yosef Chaim Sonnenfeld told him that what you're doing is churban abayis. To mitzayir your child, because you're saying Kinos, that's what will keep the Beis HaMikdash destroyed. You want the Beis HaMikdash to be built, go home and take care of your child. Know what the priorities are. What's the ikr and what's the tafel? So educating your children properly, and we're not going to go into all the halachas of education, but again, part of Avas Yisrael is loving your children properly. And loving them properly doesn't mean giving them everything they need. It means sometimes punishing them, and even sometimes hitting them. But a person who supports his children the proper way, supports them with discipline, supports them monetarily, supports them with food, and is mekayim the mitzvah of oset tzedakah b'chol eis. It's also tzedakah. It's also chesed. So, as we say this Kina, we speak about these kehilas that were destroyed, and families that went al Kiddush Hashem together. It was much better to live al Kiddush Hashem together, to live the proper way. A person, mishpacha is from the lashon nispach, an attachment. People learn how to deal in society from the family relationships, how to accept authority, how to give authority, how to get along with siblings. All of that is a testing ground for how to get along in real society. And therefore it's important to practice Avas Hashem, Avas Yisrael, and to be careful with Sinas Yisrael within the family also, if not more important, because everything else comes from that. We'll say immediately after this Kina, the Kina that's supposed to be given out